Journey back to medieval times when church-appointed knights terrorized their foes, amassed a huge fortune, and may have indulged in forbidden rites. Who were these monks who killed for Christ? The Holy Land, venerated by Christians, Muslims, and Jews. At the end of the 11th century, its sacred soil ran with their blood. In the year 1096, Pope Urban II sent an army of crusading knights from Western Europe to capture the birthplace of Christianity from its Muslim overlords, the Saracens. It was said that as the victorious knights rushed to pray at the tomb of Jesus, they waded ankle-deep through blood. By the year 1100, the Crusaders ruled lands stretching from the Sinai Peninsula to northern Syria. Jubilant pilgrims, eager to worship at their holy places, made the long journey to these ancient kingdoms, believing the Crusaders would protect them from thieves and Saracens. But the Crusaders could not help them.
They captured Jerusalem and the associated holy places, but didn't have enough manpower really to occupy Palestine and Syria effectively. So it was really rather dangerous if you were a pilgrim traveling about the roads of Palestine.
In the year 1118, a group of 9 knights presented themselves to Baldwin II, leader of the Crusades and king of Jerusalem. Led by a French nobleman named Hugues de Payens, these 9 knights would swiftly grow into one of the medieval world's most powerful and controversial organizations. They called themselves the Poor Knights of Jesus Christ.
Certain noblemen of high rank, devoted to God, professed a wish to live in chastity, obedience, and without property. The first element of their profession was that they should protect the roads and routes to the utmost of their ability against the ambushes of thieves and attackers, especially in regard to the safety of pilgrims. Archbishop William of Tyre.
King Baldwin offered the poor knights lodgings in an unused wing of his palace on Jerusalem's Temple Mount. The Crusaders believed this had once been the site of ancient Israel's Holy of Holies, the Temple of King Solomon. It was not long before the Poor Knights of Christ acquired a new name, the Knights of the Temple of Solomon, shortened to Knights of the Temple or Knights Templar. Soon all of Christendom would know them and regard them with a mixture of curiosity and awe. The medieval world had never known anything like the Knights Templar. Like monks, Hugues de Payens and his Templars took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. They rose before dawn to pray and took their simple meals in silence. The official seal of their new order bore a striking image of humility, two poor Templars sharing the same horse. Hardly the icon of proud crusading knights. Yet the Templars were devoted to war. Hugues de Payens and his 9 knights guarded the pilgrim routes with a skill and ferocity that would make the Templars feared and respected throughout the Middle East.
What is so unusual about these orders is that they were men of religion. They'd taken the regular vows of any monk, and yet they were allowed to kill. This is the first time this ever happened.
The Templars' strange dual identity puzzled their fellow crusaders. Many wondered if perhaps these fighting monks had some other hidden mission. The fact that the Templars held all of their meetings in secret made them even more intriguing and gave birth to speculations which have endured to this day. Some said that the Templars were secretly digging beneath their living quarters at the site of Solomon's temple, perhaps hoping to discover Solomon's fabled treasure, the Ark of the Covenant, or even the Holy Grail.
They seem to have cleared a fairly large area underneath the Temple Mount in what was, it's claimed, the stables of Solomon's temple. What they were doing there and what they found, nobody knows.
It's a mystery whether the Templars excavated anything under Solomon's temple. There isn't any sign that there was any digging that took place there. It was a sacred site. I doubt very much they would have dug into it.
Were the Templars a shadowy sect on a clandestine quest, or were they simply pious soldiers of Christ? However humble their beginnings, theirs would be an extraordinary destiny. In its first 8 years, the fledgling orders of the Knights Templar lacked money and recruits and struggled to survive. At times, its future seemed in doubt. Then in the year 1126, everything changed. In that year, Hugues de Payens, leader of the Templars, returned to France. There, he won the support of Bernard of Clairvaux, known to history as Saint Bernard, the most brilliant and powerful churchman of his time.
The warriors are gentler than lambs and fiercer than lions, weighting the mildness of the monk with the valor of the knight, with one soul and one heart. Bernard of Clairvaux.
Having the support of the single most influential churchman in the West in the 1120s and 1130s enabled a small, rather obscure group of men vowed to protect the pilgrim routes, enabled them to become very famous, and then they begin to attract many donations and many supporters and members.
The poor knights of the temple soon found themselves one of the wealthiest organizations in Europe. In 1130, his ranks swollen with new recruits, Hugues de Payens returned in triumph to the Holy Land, where he fell upon the enemies of Christendom like a righteous whirlwind. By 1165, the Templars had built a string of impregnable castles along the border of Crusader lands. In battle, their fanatical courage and iron discipline stunned the Saracens. Templars did not retreat unless they were outnumbered 3-1. If the Saracens captured Templars, they beheaded them instead of ransing them as they did less frightening opponents. Over 20,000 Templars died in battle during the Crusades. And yet, strange as it may seem, Templars and Saracens came to honor one another.
When I was visiting Jerusalem, I used to go where my Templar friends were staying. Along one side of the building was a church. The Templars placed this spot at my disposal that I might say my prayers. Usama ibn Munkir, Saracen diplomat.
There's a famous story that in a Templar church, a Muslim was praying to Mecca facing east when a recently arrived crusader came in and wanted to throw the Muslim out, thinking it was a dreadful thing for him to be praying in a Christian church. But the Templar brothers prevented anything happening to the Muslim and said that he was a good friend of theirs. So we think that they got along really quite well with the Muslims in the Holy Land.
Over the centuries, just how close did the Templars and Saracens become? It has long been established that Templars led diplomatic missions to the courts of Muslim princes and learned Arabic. They may also have had dealings with the fanatical drug-taking sect known as the Hashishiyah, whose name passed into English as assassins.
The Templars certainly had quite extensive connections with the Islamic and the Judaic cultures. They absorbed a great deal of their cultures. It's even said that they brought the chess game into Europe.
It was rumored that the Templars' Muslim and Jewish friends were teaching them the ancient wisdom of the East. Secret arts such as alchemy, astrology, and numerology. And some believe they delved even deeper into the realm of forbidden rites and knowledge. In the ruins of Templar churches, strange disembodied heads stare down at visitors. Since medieval times, the belief has persisted that the Templars may have secretly violated their religious vows by worshiping a human head. No one could agree on a description of the heretical head. Some described it as a beautiful woman made from silver and gold. Others claimed it was a bearded man with hollow, burning eyes and horns on its forehead. Still others said it had 3 faces and was made of mummified human flesh. For reasons no one knows, some called the head Caput 58, meaning head 58. Others gave it the puzzling name Baphomet. Remembering the Templars' close relations with their Saracen enemies, some historians speculated that Baphomet was Muhammad and that the Templars were secret followers of Islam. But Islam strictly forbids the worship of heads or any other graven images. Then, in the 1980s, biblical scholar Dr. Hugh Schoenfield proposed a startling new theory. Schoenfield claimed to have discovered what he called the Atbash cipher, an ancient secret code based on the Hebrew alphabet. He believed that the Templars learned the cipher in the Middle East and used it to conceal their heretical beliefs in apparently meaningless words.
The Hebrew alphabet contains 22 letters. If you write the first 11 in a vertical column and the second 11 next to them, you then merely have to change one into the other. If you write down the name Baphomet in Hebrew and then transliterate it, change the letters using the Atbash cipher, you are left clearly and simply with the word Sophia. And Sophia is wisdom. It is the female wisdom principle.
Some believe the Templars secretly worshipped this forbidden goddess of wisdom. In the earliest days of Christianity, Sophia was revered by mystical sects called Gnostics, or those who know. Some scholars believe Sophia was connected with the Egyptian goddess Isis and other pagan goddesses of remote antiquity. In the 4th century, the Catholic Church outlawed the Gnostics. But Gnostic beliefs may have lived on, secretly cherished throughout the Middle Ages, perhaps by the Knights Templar. Despite scholarly skepticism, the belief persists that the Templars worshipped a mysterious head. There are those who speculate that the Templar head may be linked with one of history's most famous enigmas. The 12th century church of Temple Combe village in southwestern England, in medieval times a stronghold of the Knights Templar. This humble village priory is world famous among those who seek answers to Templar mysteries. On its wall hangs a strange painting of a man's face, dated by archaeologists to the later 13th century, known as the Temple Combe head. There are those who believe the Temple Combe head resembles a famous Christian relic. The Holy Shroud of Turin, revered for centuries as the burial cloth of Jesus, bearing the imprint of his body and face. A curious medieval legend appears to link the Shroud of Turin with the Knights Templar. For the Shroud of Turin may once have been known by another name, the Mandilion.
The Mandilion is a cloth which supposedly bore the imprint of the face of Jesus. The legend surrounding the Mandilion is that it came into the possession of a king of Edessa called Abgar, and that it cured him of a sickness. And as a result of that, he converted his nation to Christianity.
According to its legend, the Mandilion was taken from Edessa by a besieging army of the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantines brought the sacred cloth to their capital of Constantinople, where it remained until the year 1204, one of the blackest years in medieval history. 1204 was the year of the infamous Fourth Crusade, when an army of European knights headed for the Holy Land chose instead to plunder the treasures of Christian Constantinople. Medieval chronicles confirm that Knights Templar were among the Crusaders' ranks. amid the chaos of the looting, the Mandylion is said to have disappeared. But it may not have been lost. "150 years later, in 1350, the Shroud of Turin first appears in the possession of a French nobleman named Geoffroy de Charnay. Geoffroy de Charnay's uncle, also named Geoffroy, was a high-ranking official of the Knights Templar. Could the Shroud of Turin be the lost Mandylion rescued by the Templars from the looters of Constantinople and preserved by the Charnay family? Is the enigmatic head in Temple Coombe Church a portrait of the Mandylion? As in all questions surrounding the Templars, the debate remains heated and unresolved.
The image of Christ at Temple Coombe is a standard image of Christ in medieval art, and you'll find it everywhere. It bears no special relationship to the Shroud of Turin.
If the Mandylion is the shroud, and if it had been in the possession of the Templars, there is the interesting coincidence that Geoffroy de Charnay was the uncle of the man who 50 years later had the Holy Shroud of Turin. It's therefore possible to make the case that the Shroud of Turin is the Mandylion.
Whether or not the Templars once held the Shroud of Turin remains unknown. The mysterious warrior monks zealously guarded their secrets, arousing suspicion and ultimately sealing their doom. As the 13th century ended, the Knights Templar stood at the peak of their wealth and power. Their monastic empire stretched far beyond the Holy Land. Some 900 Templar centers were scattered across the medieval world. They had a highly trained, battle-hardened army and a network of impregnable fortresses from England to Egypt. The warrior monks were rumored to be unimaginably rich. They may have owned as many as 15,000 properties across Europe. Yet as a religious order, they paid no taxes. The Templars seemed to have more money than most princes. Indeed, most princes owed them money. The Knights' wealth made them the most prominent bankers of their age. To handle international transactions, they invented a medieval version of the traveler's check. They bankrolled the wars and the lavish lifestyles of Europe's kings and princes. Time and power eventually seem to have eroded the order's strict discipline. To drink like a Templar was becoming a common expression. But the Templars' power was nothing to joke about. By papal decree, they answered to no one save the Pope, and Rome's authority over them was rarely enforced. No king in Christendom could tell the Templars what to do. But even as the Templars seemed beyond the reach of any earthly authority, events were conspiring to bring about their destruction. For decades, the Templars and other Crusaders had been fighting a losing battle to keep the Holy Land. Led by their brilliant general Saladin, the Crusaders' Saracen enemies pushed them out of Jerusalem and back towards the sea. In the year 1291, the last Crusader fortress in the Holy Land fell to an overpowering Saracen force. The Templars in its garrison refused to surrender and fought to their deaths. With the Bible lands now firmly back in Saracen control, Templar armies retreated to Europe, watched nervously by Europe's kings.
After the Templars lost the Holy Land, you could, in the simplest terms, say that they really didn't have anything to do. They were immensely powerful, immensely wealthy, haughty, arrogant men. It's perfectly understandable that they might have wanted to create a state of their own.
The center of Templar power was in France, the heartland of medieval civilization. Were the Templars planning to establish their own nation by seizing part of France? To this day, no one knows. Perhaps it is not surprising that as the 14th century dawned, the Templars were confronted by a new and cunning enemy, Philip IV, King of France.
King Philip IV of France is an enigma. To this day, we really don't know very much about him. He was described by someone at the time as being like an owl, sitting at meetings and staring and never saying anything.
He has been accused of being a cold, calculating, Machiavellian kind of ruler on the one hand, and a pious, devout ruler on the other hand. He's been accused of not knowing what his government was doing. He was accused of masterminding everything that his government was doing. He is probably as enigmatic a ruler as you can find in all of medieval Europe.
Philip was worried by the unchecked power of the Templars. He also needed money desperately to finance his wars and political schemes. The French monarch resolved to crush the Templars and to seize their staggering riches for himself. Yet even the King of France could not openly attack one of the Catholic Church's most prominent religious orders, at least not without the Pope's consent. Before he moved against the Templars, Philip made sure he had papal cooperation. He ordered his officials to kidnap the Pope, who soon died. The next Pope also died mysteriously, allowing Philip to place his own candidate, Clement V, on the papal throne. Old and ailing, Clement would not stand in Philip's way. With lethal precision, the king struck. Friday, April 13th, 1307. Just before dawn, Philip's constables raided every Templar center in France. In one ruthless, perfectly coordinated move, every French Templar was arrested, and all Templar property confiscated by the crown.
Nothing like this had ever been done anywhere in medieval Europe. It was done, as one great historian has said, in a manner as efficient as a modern dictatorial state could do it, and probably more efficient. The Templars didn't have a chance.
The shock of the Templar arrests has been immortalized in popular superstition. Since 1307, Friday the 13th, the day of their arrest, has been deemed an unlucky day. With the French Templars in his power, Philip wasted no time in carrying out his vow to destroy the order. he charged them with no fewer than 127 blasphemous crimes and ordered his henchmen to make sure that they confessed.
A large number of the Templars were tortured, and tortured quite brutally. One man describes being kept tied up in a pit for many months. Others were tortured on the rack. Others were tortured by having weights attached to their testicles. Others were attached to a rope, and this was thrown over a beam, and they were suddenly jerked over this beam.
In Philip's torture chambers, most French Templars admitted to denying the divinity of Christ, to spitting and urinating on the crucifix, and to kissing new recruits on the mouth, navel, and buttocks. Some confessed homosexual acts. Were any of the accusations against them true, or did the knights confess to end the agony of torture? In 1314, 7 years after his arrest, Jacques de Molay, Grand Master of the Order, stunned his persecutors by publicly retracting his confession and proclaiming the Templars innocent. An enraged King Philip ordered Molay and 54 other French Templars burned at the stake. As the flames engulfed him, Jacques de Molay is said to have shouted out a final curse upon the French king and the Pope, calling on Philip and Clement to join him at the throne of God before the year's end. Within a month, Clement V was dead. Near the end of the year, Philip IV was mauled to death by a wild boar. Despite his relentless persecution of the Templars, Philip never laid his hands on their immense wealth. Before he died, Clement V disbanded the warrior monks throughout the rest of Europe and gave their vast estates to other religious orders. It was soon whispered that a few Templar knights had escaped, taking an enormous treasure with them, a treasure that has never been found. When the French king Philip IV crushed the Templars in the early 14th century, he raided their headquarters and confiscated everything he found. But Philip never found what he wanted most of all, the fabulous treasure the Templars were rumored to possess. The story has persisted that on the night before Philip arrested the French Templars, a fleet of Templar warships slipped out of Paris under the cover of darkness. It is said that the Templar ships sailed down the Seine River to the Atlantic Ocean, carrying the Templars' legendary riches beyond King Philip's greedy grasp.
Did the Templar fleet have the Templar treasure on board? We don't know, but it's one way, and a seemingly rational way, of explaining what happened to the treasure. Could it just have been that somebody tipped them off, it was piled onto the ships, and the Templar fleet sailed off, and some of them went down to Portugal, and some of them went maybe out to Scotland, some of them went up to the Baltic Sea, who knows, some, it said, went to America.
For those who believe these legends to be true, one special place has revealed intriguing evidence. Roslin Chapel, one of Scotland's most beautiful churches and a monument to an enduring mystery. Located some 20 miles south of Edinburgh, it was built about 1450, nearly 150 years after the Knights Templar were disbanded. Yet hidden throughout Roslyn's dazzling interior, carved by master craftsmen with astonishing skill, are strange symbols some say only Templars could comprehend. In one dark corner, two men seem to sit astride one horse, the ancient Templar emblem. In another, an enigmatic figure reveals a human head. Could it be Baphomet or the Mendelian? The mysterious carvings of Roslyn Chapel are proof to some that despite their official annihilation, some Knights Templar escaped to Scotland and found sanctuary there.
In Scotland, there was tension, fighting was going on with England. The papal bull suppressing the order was never officially promulgated in Scotland, and so the order, it's possible to argue, was never officially suppressed in Scotland.
Today, believers in legend carry on their quest to discover where the Templars might have gone and where their fabled treasure might still be. Others believe they have already found true Templar gold. Around the world, philanthropic organizations like Scotland's Military Templi Scotia carry on what they say is the Templars' greatest legacy, the ideal of selfless service to God and humanity.
I think that the real mission for the temple now in this modern world is that there is a necessity for a spiritual awareness which really has disappeared with the advancement of science and the destruction of a lot of our original beliefs.
My brothers in Christ.
It feeds the spiritual within to collectively be a group of people who believe in the same thing and a group of people that you can trust. I mean, that doesn't happen very often these days.
You being chosen to be one of the honourable company of this most illustrious and ancient order of the Templar of Jerusalem.
Today's Templar organizations are not direct descendants of the medieval knights.
Do you promise and swear by the Holy Scriptures that wittingly you shall not break any statutes of the said order, or to the articles in them contained?
I do, to serve God and Scotland.
But these modern Templars are inspired by a spiritual commitment the original Templars would no doubt recognize and approve.
In the name of God, Avant, Chevalier.
I think the relevance of the Templar order is as strong as it was yesterday and will be in the future. It's all about developing yourself spiritually, finding your spiritual values and helping other people to find theirs also.
Today's Templars are no longer monks and no longer only men. They wield their swords only in peaceful ceremonies. But they do lay claim to one of history's noblest traditions and to secrets far greater than any lurid tales of hidden treasure or shocking rites.
The mystery of the Templars comes from a knowledge of yourself. That is the greatest mystery. If you can attain that, then you will know all wisdom.
Beyond all legends, beyond all beliefs, the Knights Templar have vanished into history. Whether they were valiant soldiers of Christ, utterly innocent of the scandalous accusations which wrought their tragic end, or whether they were guardians of a secret and perhaps forbidden knowledge, a wisdom far older than the Christian religion they were founded to serve, remains uncertain. As the centuries pass, these unanswered questions about the mysterious Knights of the Temple of Solomon will never cease to intrigue us as we continue our journey in search of history.